For more, let's bring in former U.S. Attorney Guy Lewis to talk about this. All right, week one of the so-called hush money trial in the books so far, but really the majority of the week was spent on this one witness, David Pecker, you know, the ex-tabloid king, National Enquirer chief. Your thoughts on allegations from some legal analysts that this is being slow-rolled, that this is going to take a long time, 6 to 8 weeks potentially, and how things are going so far?
Well, frankly, I think that's probably the play out of the Democrats' playbook to slow walk this thing. Everybody thought that David Pecker was going to be maybe on and off an hour, introduce a few documents. He's turned out to be 2 days. And frankly, what's fascinating, Molly, is the defense turned him, I think, into a Trump witness, a pro-Trump witness. They frankly cross-examined him. He came out with some good things about Trump, and he demonstrated that there were other people that did the same thing. And my question always is, why aren't they being prosecuted in the same way Trump is?
And what do you mean by that? Who are the people that you would highlight when you mention that?
So there was Tiger Woods, there was other celebrities. I mean, he indicated that there were these non-disclosure agreements. They would purchase a story. Sometimes they would run them. Sometimes they wouldn't. And so I'm left with the conclusion that it's only President Trump who is now being prosecuted for what I would argue are Mickey Mouse charges.
Yeah, what we're talking about here is the catch and kill. And that's really what we're getting the window into here, is how catch and kill works, how broadly it was being used. This sort of pay-by-play journalism, as you mentioned, seems to be something that was really just how things operated at the National Enquirer to a certain extent.
Incredible, Molly, because listen, I prosecuted for a long time. I've defended now for 20 years. I have never, ever seen a federal prosecution like this. And when you look at the fact that the Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, looked at it, declined. The U.S. Attorney's Office in New York looked at it, one of the most aggressive prosecutors' offices in the nation, declined. Again, I'm left with the question, why are we prosecuting President Trump? And when you look at the lead prosecutor, oh my God, he was a official in the Biden, before he became involved in this case, an official in the Biden DOJ. So I think this is all part of their playbook.
Meanwhile, there was somewhere else this week that President Trump would have very much liked to have been. That was down at the Supreme Court listening to arguments about claims of immunity as in presidential powers. Take a listen to President Trump. Here's what he had to say about really the dual screen, him being stuck in New York as the Supreme Court was looking very carefully at this issue in a long hearing.
The U.S. Supreme Court had a monumental hearing on immunity, and the immunity having to do with presidential immunity. And I think it was made clear, I hope it was made clear, that a president has to have immunity, or you don't have a president, or at most you can say it would be a ceremonial president. That's not what the founders had in mind.
The justices and the lawyers involved here as well dug into this for almost 3 hours. Your thoughts on what we listened to this week?
Great point. So I think this thing went longer again than people expected. The justices were very, very engaged. They may not grant 100% absolute immunity across the board, but I am convinced that based on the questioning that they're going to grant presidential immunity, and it's going to disrupt all of these cases, Molly, going forward.
There's also a possibility that the justices could send this back to a lower court to dig into whether or not the president's actions were private or official duty. What could that potentially mean?
You make a great point. So the prosecutor himself, when I was the U.S. attorney and an assistant U.S. attorney, I enjoyed prosecutorial immunity. The prosecutor himself, why shouldn't the president? And we'd go back and we'd have hearings and we'd decide whether we were committing official acts or not. And with the president, it's even more difficult because he's half of the time he's a politician, half the time he's running the country, and most of the time that clashes and runs into each other. So it's going to be a very difficult proposition to send this back. It's going to take, I think, all summer.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Guy Lewis. We really appreciate your insights coming in and hashing out this last rather fascinating week in the world of former President Trump and the legal cases and things that could have ramifications for many presidents to come. So, Guy Lewis, your insights much appreciated.
Thanks very much.
Griff?
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.